Are rich people greedy? I'm Keith Weinhold. We're exploring that together here in this second video in a 3-part series. And did you ever realize that no one wants to be known as rich and no one wants to be known as poor? Yeah, no one likes either label. If you call a person rich, that makes them kind of uncomfortable and they feel like they have to reply with some statement about modesty or kind of dismiss that you called them rich. And if you call a person poor, you know, that's probably deemed as worse. It's almost a pejorative in society, and someone's even seen as a jerk for calling another person poor. So almost everyone wants to be known as middle class as it is. And you know what else is incongruent in society? For some reason, actors and entertainers can make huge salaries and be celebrated for that. But yet when entrepreneurs and investors make huge salaries, they're often resented or even scorned. But yet, who does more for society? People like actors that are just pretending to be someone else? Or a risk-taking entrepreneur that has a clean drinking water technology, or perhaps a mobile app that makes your life easier? Recently, soccer star Cristiano Ronaldo became the highest paid athlete ever at $200 million per year, and Yankee slugger Aaron Judge got $360 million over 9 years. Those athletes entertain others. I like watching sports, but I don't know that even they are advancing society like the innovation that Steve Jobs brought to Apple. I don't think they are. My point is that you deserve wealth if you are a real estate investor that provides good housing to others. Think about what you did. You might have built good credit, taken out a mortgage loan that you have to pay back. You have to manage a property insurance policy. You either manage tenants or you manage a manager that manages the property. You might have improved the property. You might have taken on risk during uncertain times like the global health crisis a few years ago. So you are entitled to the upward mobility that wealth can bring you. Providing good housing is not greed. Hey, go ahead and put a like on this video if you like the topic that I'm taking on, and enjoy the second of my 3-part series with international man Doug Casey. Are rich people greedy? There's a really popular thing that you hear along with this eat the rich sentiment, and that is that oftentimes when it comes to taxes, people like to say the wealthy should pay their fair share. That's something that you hear an awful lot. I hear that a lot, but I have no idea what fair share really means. So what are your thoughts around a statement like that? I really think that's part of the statement where people resent the rich again.
Well, hold on to your wallet whenever anybody uses the word fair.
Right.
It's like when 2 wolves and a sheep sit down to have dinner and decide what to eat. That's what fair usually leads you to. As far as the income tax is concerned, it's become part of the cosmic firmament as far as most Americans are concerned. I don't think most Americans realize that the income tax did not exist before 1913.
Right.
And the country got on marvelously well. Economic growth was much more solid, even without the benefit of the high technology that we have today that should have greatly accelerated economic growth. But in the last 20, 30 years, in fact, over the last 50 years, the standard of living, notwithstanding the wonderful breakthroughs that have been made in science and technology, the standard of living of the average American has been stagnant and now is declining, being held up only by huge amounts of debt that the average guy is taking on to finance his house, to finance his car, to finance his education. This is going to end very, very badly. And it's creating a lot of resentment in the society. People are looking for somebody to blame. And they see that there are a class of people that are making huge amounts of money, mostly the financial class. And frankly, they think a lot of it is stolen money, indirectly stolen money. I hate to say something like that as a laissez-faire capitalist, not a Republican capitalist, a laissez-faire capitalist. A lot of that money has been indirectly stolen. because the Federal Reserve, which prints money by the trillions and injects it into society, that money usually goes into the hands of a certain political class, a certain financial class. That's why the rich have been getting richer, while the average guy has been going nowhere or going downhill over the last 50 years, especially since the currency was totally divorced from gold, which limited the amount of dollars which could be created. So yeah, people do feel like it's time to eat the rich. And in some ways, they're right.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a difference in how one obtains their wealth. Are they actually helping others throughout society, or are they getting wealth in a different way or a nefarious way? I take, for example, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. I see wealth creators like him as advancing global prosperity. He and Bezos's ideas have made everyone a bit richer. He took on real risk and embraced ingenuity to help pioneer the ease of you having a phone in your pocket, being able to pull out your phone, touch on the Amazon app, and having all kinds of household goods just be able to show up right on your porch, from a frying pan to electronics to protein powder. So he kind of makes everyone else a bit richer with how he obtained wealth. I don't think that sort of wealth should be resented.
Oh, absolutely not. And I'm all for Elon Musk, who is a singular genius, having, whether you like electric cars or not, we could have a whole discussion about their advantages and disadvantages. But it takes a genius to shepherd something like Tesla through from beginning to end. Forget about his SpaceX, totally different thing. Forget about his Boring Company and so forth. I mean, people like that advance civilization and increase the standard of living of all of us.
We talked about the income tax, something that really didn't even exist until just over 100 years ago. I believe it was signed into law in 1913. 1914 was the first year that the income tax was instituted. And the vast majority of Americans only paid an income tax rate of 1% when the income tax was instituted. In fact, on an inflation-adjusted basis, today your income would have to exceed $500K per year to have paid more than 1% income tax back when it was instituted in 1914. And of course, today we have marginal income tax rates between 10% and 37%. Right there is potential evidence that we've moved more from an individualist state to a collective state. Do you have any more thoughts on the wealthy paying their fair share as it intersects with taxes? Is the flat tax an answer?
Well, the fact of the matter is, let me start out by saying that it's actually worse than you described, Keith, because you're not counting the Social Security tax, which amounts to, from $1, 13.5% non-tax deductible dollars, which go off to Social Security. So that's off the top before we even talk about income tax. But Social Security, it turns out, is about the only tax that most lower, the bottom half of American society pays.
Right.
Because it turns out that the rich people, or people that earn over $35,000, $40,000 a year, I guess that classifies as rich today.
Globally.
They pay all the taxes. So the people at the bottom of society aren't paying any taxes at all, except to Social Security, which I've got to say is a scam. We can discuss that. That'll shock a lot of people. A lot of people won't want to hear it, especially those that are collecting Social Security, which is not an insurance program. It's actually a welfare program. It's not actuarially sound, never was.
Yeah, well, tell us more about that. Tell us why Social Security is a scam, because that's existed since the 1930s when FDR set it into law. And when it's been around for 90 years, nearly like that, people just sort of get used to it or conditioned to having Social Security income.
Well, yes, FDR started it as a supposed benefit, seemed like a free benefit, I suppose, at the bottom of the last depression. And the idea was to give people in retirement a base income that would keep them out of dire poverty. That was the idea behind it. But if you're going to have a Social Security program, and I would argue from an ethical point of view, you shouldn't have one because it's coercive. I mean, you have to pay Social Security. If you don't pay it, you'll go to jail. But a proper Social Security program would be one where you put money in your own individual retirement account, and it's invested in stocks and would grow with the economy. But Social Security, the proceeds, the money you put into Social Security, isn't invested in real assets. It's invested in government debt. Well, people say, well, that's safe and secure. Well, it's government debt, and government debt has to be paid off at some time. But at some point, they're all going to have to be unwound. And the $31 trillion of debt that the U.S. government owes to some people, I don't see how it can ever be paid. And that's only the disclosed debt of the U.S. government. We're not talking about the off-the-books debt, which would include Social Security, incidentally, and Medicare and Medicaid. So at this point, the U.S. government is completely and totally bankrupt. It's like Wile E. Coyote that's walked off a cliff, but doesn't really realize it yet. And I'm afraid that in the next few years, Wiley is going to hit the bottom of the canyon, and it's going to result in all kinds of unpleasantness and inconvenience here in the U.S., maybe even chaos.